We tend to think of nations as a relatively stable thing. But if you pay close attention, nations are changing around us all the time. In just the past 30 years, 12 new nations have been formed. And since the end of World War II, 90 nations, nearly half of all the countries on Earth, have gained the right to govern themselves. In fact, if you look back through human history, nations are a relatively new idea. There are restaurants that have been around longer than any of the countries represented in the United Nations. So where did the idea of a nation come from in the first place? Why do they exist? And as the 21st century progresses, will nations as we know them become a thing of the past? To answer these questions, let's take a long look at the Babins, a fictional family of farmers living in the Loire Valley in modern-day France. Back in prehistoric times, Mom, Dad, and baby Babin probably thought of themselves as members of their local tribe and distrusted any outsiders. This was a smart move on their part. These tribal instincts helped keep them alive. Resources were limited, and outsiders might have attacked them for their food. By banding together, the Babins and their tribe could keep everyone fed and protect themselves from danger. As time went by, many things changed for the Babins, but their sense of community was likely still very local. In feudalistic Europe, the Babins probably defined themselves as part of a community ruled by a local lord, or as residents of a specific region, but nothing as large as a nation. If any members of the Babin family moved to the big city, they might have considered themselves Parisian. But it wasn't until the 18th century or so that the concept of a nation began to flourish throughout Europe and the rest of the world, and the Babins became French. The modern-day Babins carry a French passport, vote in French elections, and cheer for the French national teams in international sporting events, but their country isn't done changing. In the past 200 years, millions of immigrants have left their homes and home countries in pursuit of a better life. As a result, many nations around the world have become increasingly diverse. In the past, the Babins group identity was forged with families just like them. But the modern-day Babins can no longer rely on a common history, language, race, and/or religion to anchor their sense of national belonging. National identities need to be reshaped to accommodate their diverse citizenry, and many countries are debating these issues passionately. The borders that define nations are also starting to erode. The border between France and Germany, for example, has less authority than it used to. Both countries are part of the European Union, an intergovernmental organization that encourages citizens of many European countries to work and travel freely between them. Hundreds of intergovernmental organizations like the EU exist, but so do many international non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. These organizations strive to provide humanitarian aid, education, and other resources to the citizens of different countries. With NGOs replacing some of the traditional roles of a national government, many are questioning the relevancy of countries as a political entity. Even currencies no longer depend on governments to give them value. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are transforming the rules of a financial system that was previously controlled by national governments. Another threat to the primacy of nations comes from multinational corporations, which often command more resources and political influence than countries. Apple, the California-based tech company, is worth about $900 billion US. If Apple were a nation, it would be the 17th wealthiest on the planet. And Apple is not alone. Many more companies, including giants like Amazon, Coca-Cola, and Microsoft, are richer than most countries on the planet. The internet has made national boundaries even less meaningful, putting global culture and communication at our fingertips. As former U.S. Secretary of Labor Robert Reich put it, nations are becoming less relevant in a world where everyone and everything is interconnected. Since the invention of nations, not only has our culture become more global, so too have the challenges we face. Problems like climate change, energy availability, refugee crises, and terrorism threaten us all. Similarly, many of the future opportunities that await us, from unlocking the mysteries of a human brain to building colonies in space, will require a high level of global cooperation. Will the current political structure of national governments remain strong in years to come? Will nations be able to live peacefully and collaborate on a global scale? Or will humankind revert to a historical past of tribalism and mistrust? Only time will tell. One thing is for sure, our idea of nations will keep evolving with us as we strive to redefine who we are and where we belong.